God, we would pray that we would be more than just hearers of your word. We would pray that we would be doers of your word. God, our prayer this morning is that you would be each and every one of us right where we are at, that your Holy Spirit would speak to us, that he would reveal any blind spots that we might have. And God, as we talk about the power of the tongue this morning, we would pray that each and every one of us would commit to at least today, that we would put into practice and try to live out your word amongst our relationships today. So God, we would pray that you would speak, that we would hear, that we would listen, that we would obey and follow you. We ask this in Jesus' name. And God's church said, Amen. Well, we're in the book of James. Today is part 3 of a 5-part series in the book of James. And James, the brother of Jesus, is deeply concerned. He is deeply concerned that people's belief would move into action, that we would have a doing faith. Amen. And so today his focus is going to begin a discussion on our tongues. And I think, and I could be wrong here, but I think the greatest threat to the church in the world is our tongues.
Amen.
I think we've all probably got a blind spot in this area where we are not careful. And I've titled my message this morning, "The Tongue is a Spark." And I think sometimes our tongue just kind of wags in the wind, and it's starting, here's a spark, here's a spark, here's a spark. And we don't necessarily intend for these sparks to be flying all over the place, but a spark will find fuel, and then the fuel is caught ablaze, and then there's all kinds of destruction done by sometimes somebody who's completely unaware that they've started a fire in somebody else's life. And as I was thinking about this, I began to think about the campfire that took place last summer. I mean, how many of you all are aware that the West Coast was pretty much on fire all last summer? And I didn't know how the campfire was started. I had heard about all of the acres and the miles that were burned, and I had no clue. I mean, I'm sure you all are smarter than I am, and I had to look it up to figure out how the campfire got going. And so I've got some details for you that I want to share of what I discovered about the campfire. Number one, it was unusually hot and dry,
Amen.
which meant that the conditions were ripe for a fire to be started. Just a point of application, not in the manuscript, this is for free. You need to know that the conditions are ripe in the people around you for them to be offended by the things that we say and do. So the conditions were ripe. It was unusually hot and dry. You might not know this, but the campfire was the deadliest fire in California history. It was the deadliest wildfire in the U.S. history since 1918. It burned nearly 240 square miles. If you prefer a different way of measurement, that was 153,336 acres of land got burned because of the wildfire. But I had no idea how the thing got started. Sometimes fires are started intentionally and sometimes they're not. And so I was curious how the wildfire, the campfire got started, and this is what I discovered. It was started by a hook holding up a high power line. The hook sparked and the fire started. About 30 minutes later, a distribution line sparked as well, and it provided a second ignition source. As I further researched into the wildfire, what I discovered is both of these sparks were started by faulty equipment, which means even though that the conditions were ripe for a fire, these sparks never needed to take place. A fire could have been avoided. And so I thought, I wonder how many fires are actually started unintentionally by people that are just doing stupid stuff. And I was surprised to find this article. This is an actual article that was released August 14th of last year. It was in the Redwood News down in Mendocino County. Maybe some of you have heard of that newspaper. And this is what the article said. 15 fires started in the midst of Mendocino complex, attributed to dragging tow chains. Well, that's interesting. In an effort to address the community's concerns, the Mendocino County Sheriff's Patrol Division, the Detectives Division, and the Caballero Volunteer Fire Department and CAL FIRE personnel initiated an investigation into the possible cause and origin of these 15 fires. In viewing surveillance tapes, a vehicle was identified and the owner contacted. This person had been towing a recently acquired trailer and had admitted to having driven the same routes in the immediate time frames as all of the fires that had started. An examination of his tow chains revealed significant wear from dragging on the grounds. A CAL FIRE investigator was consulted and agreed that the starts appeared to be consistent with a chain dragging behind a trailer and did not appear that the fires were intentionally set. Now that is fascinating, isn't it? You've got one individual who all he's doing is towing his trailer. He's out wanting to have a good time with his family, and he hooks up his trailer and then takes off down the road, and there's his chain dragging behind the truck. Drag, spark, 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 spark. And unbeknownst to him, those sparks are flying off into the ditch. And in the ditch, they're finding dry grass. And the dry grass catches. And in Mendocino County alone, this guy starts 15 wildfires. Loved ones, that is the point of James chapter 3.
Amen.
Many of us are moving through life, and our tongues are wagging in the wind. Spark, spark, spark. And sparks are flying. We're unintentionally having conversations. We think we're being funny. And the sparks are finding dry fuel in the hearts of people. And fires are being lit. And we're driving off on our merry own way thinking everything is fine and dandy. And so James, the brother of Jesus, addresses this early church and he says, listen, we need to get a handle on our tongue. So if you got your Bibles, James chapter 1, we're going to begin with verse 1. James writes, not many of you should become teachers, my brothers. So imagine yourself, you're in the first century context, and you're thinking to yourself, boy, I wonder what I want to do as far as a profession or a career. James says to all of these people in this congregation, don't go running off and be quickly making the decision to jump into the pulpits. Don't do it. And then he's going to tell us why. For you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. What James is trying to get his early church to understand is anybody who speaks on a platform such as this speaks and says, thus saith God. Amen. And he says, listen, if you're going to put on that mantle and say, thus saith God, you better make sure that you are communicating what he wants communicated.
Amen.
Because when you stand before God, he's going to hold you to an account of everything that you said that he said.
Amen.
And so he said, since this is your reality, don't be quick to speak. Don't be quick to be a teacher. And then he has something else to say that is fascinating. Notice the language of the text. He says, for we all stumble. What's the next word? We what?
All.
We all. We all stumble in many ways. The word stumble in this passage is a fascinating word. It carries with it the idea of somebody is walking along and then they get their foot caught on something. They get tripped up. They didn't intentionally fall from righteousness into sin. This wasn't something that they chose to do. It's just that they got caught up in the moment. They weren't paying attention and they tripped, they stumbled, and they fell into sin. And so James says, we all stumble in many ways. And if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man. So he started out saying, we all what? We all stumble. And since we know that we all stumble, if someone was able to be perfect in everything that came out of their mouth, they would be perfect.
Yeah.
But none of us are perfect because his whole body. And then he's going to give us two illustrations of a small thing controlling a really big thing. I wonder how many of you, by show of hands, have ever had the privilege of horseback riding? Yeah, most of us have. And you get on this horse, and it's got a saddle that you're sitting on, and it's got the reins. And inside of this massive beast's mouth is a little piece of metal called a bit. And you can make that massive animal go wherever you want by tugging on the reins, and it pulls on the metal. A little bit controls that beast wherever it's going to go. Illustration number one. Illustration number two. I wonder by a show of hands how many of you all have had the opportunity to be on a boat? Okay, most of us. Most of us have been on a boat, and a boat has a rudder. And comparative to the size of the boat, the rudder is very small. Even these massive cities that float on the water called cruise liners, they have a rudder that steers the boat wherever it's going to go. A very small item is controlling the direction of a very big item. And what James is telling us is we have a very small member of our body. It's just little. And yet it takes us to all kinds of places. Sometimes they're good places.
Amen.
And sometimes our tongue takes us to places that are very bad and destructive. Verse 5. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. Don't you find that to be true?
Amen.
You start talking to somebody, you're like, wow, they've got a lot to say on this issue. They've got heavy opinions on this issue. This person thinks very highly of themselves. The tongue, very small member, yet it boasts of great things. And then notice what James does is he takes us right back to our opening illustration. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. If you want a further proof that this is true, how many of you all can remember that stupid little line that your parents taught you when you were just a little one? You come home and your feelings have been hurt because somebody said something terrible to you at school. And so they quote this little verse, this little rhyme, like it's supposed to make you feel better. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. How many of y'all heard that? I want to meet the knucklehead that came up with that rhyme, because he needs to have his head examined. I don't remember all of the hits and the wounds and the tussles that I had on the playground. But there are some words that were said to me that I will never forget.
Amen.
And those words fall into two categories. A group of people that thought it'd be funny to tease and make fun of me. And then a group of people that were just loved ones that had no idea that those words would stick with me for an entire lifetime. I remember in the back seat of the car, the family station wagon. How many of y'all have a family station wagon? That's a sermon for another day. I remember in the back of the station wagon, and I'm just talking and talking and talking and talking about what I thought was important. And my family's like, man, you're a jabberjaws. You're a motor mouth. Don't you ever shut up. And I'm 42 years old, and I still hear that in my brain. That was hurtful. Not for people who wanted to hurt me. But it was hurtful. And then you got this other group of people. And open up the window and share a very hurtful thing. If I ever hear you repeat this, I'll have to show mercy and grace. I used to have hair. And my given name is Jericho, and so they thought it'd be fun to call me Jerry Curl, because I had hair. And so they said, well, your last name, Bertholet. So I was known all through school, Jerry Curl Birth Defect. Ouch. I still see the guy sitting behind me in the desk, poking me in the back of the head with his pencil. Jerry Curl Birth Defect. Oh! Tongues wagging in the wind, those words are gone. We're very clever as people. Incredibly clever. We've tamed every kind of animal known to man. Hannah was having a heart procedure down in San Diego, and we got to sit at a restaurant, and this restaurant was next to this big tank, and while we're eating the meal, the trainer has a whale jump up on the table, on the cement table next to our dinner table. Amazing! You can train a whale! We can't train a tongue. James says, but no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. James' words, not mine. And what James is going to let us know, he's going to let us know just a little bit later in the passage, is it's not really a tongue problem.
Amen.
It's really a heart problem. Listen to the words of Jesus Christ. For out of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks. And it's fascinating. James kind of unpacks something for us that, we don't see this anywhere else in creation. We don't see a divided nature except in the human hearts. If you plant a fig tree, you're not going to get apples. A fig tree will produce figs. If you find a fresh body of water, a pond, a lake, something that's a fresh body of water, you don't have to worry about sticking your bucket in and drawing up salt water. Because the thing is going to produce something that is consistent with its nature. Not so the human heart, because we have two natures.
Amen.
We have an old man, and we have a new man. And so we come to church on a Sunday morning, and we lift up holy hands in praise. And we bring praise and honor and glory to the God who died for our sins and rose from the dead.
Amen.
And we come to him and we sing songs of worship with this tongue. And then we leave Sunday service and we run into somebody and we find ourselves on the horn because somebody cut us off, and we're showing them our IQ on one finger or something, and we're allowing words to come out of our mouth, and blessings and curses coming out of the same hearts. And James says this should not be.
Amen.
So what's the solution? We're getting to the point of application. So if you've been dozing, wake up. If you're sitting next to somebody who's dozing, wake them up and say, hey, pastor's about to apply it and bring it home. Wake them up. This takes wisdom and understanding. If we're going to have victory over this area of our life, it takes wisdom and understanding.
Amen.
Notice the next verse. By his good conduct, his good conduct is a declaration that we have to do something.
Amen.
It's not going to be done for us. It's not going to be done to us. It has to be done by us. By his good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. You know what meekness is? Meekness is power under control. It's a stallion who has a bit in his mouth that is being controlled by the hands of a much weaker human being. Power controlled is meekness. And James says, listen, loved ones, you need to understand the power that you carry around inside of your mouth. Power to build up or power to destroy. Power to bring healing or power to bring hurt.
Amen.
You carry that inside of your own mouth, and it's your choice how you're going to wield that power. And so it says, have that power under control. It takes wisdom. Verse 13 is contrasted with verse 14. In verse 14, we read the following words. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts. The focus of verse 13 was the people around us. What's the focus of verse 14? Myself. If your focus is, man, it's not fair. What they did is not right. What they said is wrong. And I don't feel good about this. If your focus is on you, I promise you will fail in this area.
Amen.
It takes wisdom to say, I'm going to get the focus off of me, and I'm going to put it on the people around me so that I can be planting fruits of righteousness into them. That's coming in just a second. Put a pin in that thought. He says, if you've got a jealous or a selfish ambition, do not boast and be false to the truth. You know what he's actually saying? If you step into a situation and you know that you're beginning to feel it's not fair, it's not right, it's about me, you know what he's saying? Let me put it this way. My daddy used to say it this way. Jerry, better to keep your mouth shut and have everybody think you're an idiot than to open your mouth and remove all doubts. That's what James is saying in verse 14. If you find yourself getting wrapped up in self, shut it. Zip it. Because you're going to end up being false to the truth. He continues on. Okay, but this is the wisdom. This is our acts that we're going to do. The wisdom from above is, first of all, pure. Loved ones, we should not be letting anything come out of our mouth. And by mouth, because it's an overflow of the heart, I want to include our thumbs. You know what I'm talking about?
Amen.
You're texting. Those are words as well. Or maybe Facebooking. Or maybe social mediaing. Mediaing. It's now a new word. As I said it from the pulpit. But the wisdom from above is, first of all, pure.
Amen.
Okay, it's not crass. It's not vulgar. It's not filled with innuendo and suggestion. It's not compromising for the sake of a laugh. The wisdom from above is, first of all, pure. Then, peaceable. You know what that means? That means that you should be using your words to seek to establish common grounds. You are trying to find common ground so that you can have what? Peace with one another. Now, I love this next one. If you have your Bibles open, maybe you want to circle the word gentle. The words coming out of our mouth need to be gentle. Which means when you're speaking to somebody, they shouldn't feel like, ah, that hurts. That was a cutting comment. Because cutting is not gentle. It's sharp. But what about when we have to speak truth? And it's going to be hurtful. Wrap the truth in velvet.
Amen.
So it doesn't leave marks. We don't beat people up with the truth. We speak to them with gentleness and love. Wisdom from above is, first of all, pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason. By a show of hands, how many of you have ever met somebody who is never wrong?
Oh.
Okay, by a show of hands, how many are sitting next to the person who is never wrong? Don't raise your hands! We've all met somebody like that, right? It doesn't matter how much logic, how much reason you bring into the discussion, their minds are made up, and it's like they have deaf ears. He says we should be using our tongues to speak reason and to receive reason. I love this next one. If you're going to circle another one, circle full of mercy. What is mercy? Mercy is not treating someone as they deserve. That is mercy. So you're in the course of the conversation and they cut you, they hit you with a brick that's not wrapped in velvet, you're feeling stepped on, you're thinking, oh, I got a good zinger. It's what they deserve! Mercy. We show them mercy. We say, you know what, I'm not going to give them what they deserve. Why? Because Jesus has not given me what I deserve.
Amen.
I deserve hell, and he's given me eternal life because of his son, Jesus Christ. And if Jesus can climb on a cross and be pierced and nailed to it and flogged, then I can certainly receive some lashes with somebody else's tongue. Full of mercy and good fruits. We're going to put a pin in the good fruits because we're planting something in someone else. And when you plant something in someone else, you expect to reap a harvest. So put a pin in that one. We're going to come back to that one. Impartial. Impartial. You ever have a conversation with someone where like, they never agree with me because they just think I'm nuts? Anybody? Maybe I'm alone.
Okay.
Let me hand up, okay? We're going to cover. When you go into a situation, you're offering words of wisdom. The words of wisdom should not be one-sided.
Amen.
You should be able to say, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to listen, and I'm going to listen, and then I'm going to be impartial in the wisdom that God gives me. And if God doesn't give me any wisdom, I'm not going to make it up.
Amen.
I'll be quiet and sincere. I love that word, sincere,
Amen.
because we all think it. How many of y'all have ever been in a conversation where somebody says something and you just cannot wait to respond? Right? You stop listening as soon as they said it. You're like, man, please just God, let them take a breath. Let them pause for a nanosecond. Because as soon as they pause, I'm in. And so you're sitting there and you're like faking that you're listening. That is not sincerity. Listening is trying to hear the message behind the words. It's trying to hear their hearts. Being sincere in communication is seeking first to, now watch this, seek first to understand, then seek to be understood. And so we listen with sincerity, and we're like, man, is this what you said? Is this what I heard? And so we let them get their entire thought out, and we try to make, I gotta put a pen in it. I can't try to interject myself. I know they took a breath, but they're not done, which means I'm not done listening.
Amen.
Open to reason, full of good mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. Now watch this, verse 18. This is the key. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace.
Amen.
Righteousness is right standing before God. And remember we talked about good fruits being sown into somebody? If you want peace, you have to sow peace. If you want mercy, you have to sow mercy. And what James is saying, this is incredible. He says, Christians, that's all of us in this room. We have the opportunity to give a gift to everyone that we come in contact with. We can give a gift to our spouse by the way we use our tongue. We can give a gift to our children by the way we speak to them.
Amen.
We can give a gift to our schools by the way we're students or by the way we're teachers. Because we're sowing peace and righteousness into them. And when that seed is planted and we cultivate it and we water it, it's going to produce a fruit of exactly what we sow.
Amen.
We reap what we sow with our tongues. Let me close with where we started. We had a guy who climbed in a truck. He towed a camper with his tongue his chain flapping in the wind. Spark, 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 spark. You know what? A good driver, you know what he does? A good driver pre-checks his vehicle.
Amen.
He gets out and he says, listen, I got a new vehicle, I got this new trailer, I got a new chain, and he checks it out. He says, I wonder how it's all hooked up and connected. And then a good driver goes a few miles down the road and he goes, you know what? I need to reevaluate the load. So he pulls over, he gets out of the vehicle and he says, anything shift, anything move around? Do I need to readjust? Do I need to reattach? Because a driver is trying to make sure that his vehicle and his stuff is safe.
Amen.
And so he's being intentional about how he's moving down the road. our tongue.
Amen.
Pre-check yourself if you know you're going into a conversation. Is this person somebody who I have to have an extra wall on? Is this person going to be someone that likes to go into this area that I just need to be aware of? And then as you get down into the journey and the conversation, reevaluate. How is the conversation going? Am I pleased with the results that I am getting in this conversation, or do I need to backstep just a little bit and reasituate, reattach, resecure so that I can plant seeds of righteousness?
Amen.
You know, we're about to go home, which means we're about to close. I wonder, what would happen today? What would happen? I don't know what about tomorrow. What would happen today if each and every one of us committed to saying, I'm going to just control my tongue today?
Amen.
In the conversation with my husband, in the conversation with my wife, in the conversation with my kids, in the conversations with the people at the restaurant, with the waitress who did not cook my food or bring my... What would happen if I controlled my tongue today? If you would be willing to commit to saying, I'm going to be as intentional about this as possible today, would you stand with me and let's close in a word of prayer? Don't stand if you have no intention of doing it, though. Set up false expectations with the person sitting next to you. Don't do that. All right, let's close in a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for James. We thank you for this very real, very practical truth to just watch what we say and how we say it. God, it is my desire as a husband, as a father, as a pastor, as a professional in this community, as just a person. God, I want to sow good seeds into the people who have interactions with me and leave your gifts with them through my tongue. God, let me do it today. As I leave here, help me to be intentional about every word that comes out of my mouth. And God, I would pray that as we plant these seeds, that you would help us to see a rich harvest so that we would be encouraged to plant the same seeds again tomorrow and then on Tuesday and Wednesday, and so that we will all be in celebration because we've had wonderful conversation with each other next Sunday. God, we ask these things in Jesus' name, and God's church said, Amen.